Schönen guten Tag zu diesem 10. Es ist schon der 10. Livestream aus der
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to our 10th live stream event from the Puttrich station of the state of Hessen, a small anniversary since our start of the digital events after the beginning of the corona crisis. We are still sitting here alone, but you're looking to us from afar, and today we're going to deal with a topic that's not directly linked to corona, but it's still very important. It has been a little bit forgotten due to the current discussion. I'm going to talk to Paulina Dejmek-Hack about the topic of Brexit, or rather post-Brexit, as we should correctly say. Paulina has been working in Brussels for a very long time, has been part of the Brexit and post-Brexit negotiation team ever since the beginning of last year, has been part of the last phase of the harder Brexit deals, and has been looking hard on how things are going to continue, has also worked in the Juncker cabinet on other topics, had been working with Commissioner Barnier on financial topics, so she has a lot of Brussels experience. Hard to have more than that. Swedish Czech background, this language skill is also been living and working in Brussels for a long time, so fluent in French, some Dutch, also fluent in German, so we're going to be talking German here. You can of course also listen to the English version, and you can ask questions as you can every time. 0032 472 030181 for our question hotline. But before we get deeper into the Brexit topic, I'm going to pass the floor to Minister Puttrich. Ladies and gentlemen, dear guests, it's my great pleasure to welcome you to one of our digital events that are quickly becoming a tradition, and I'm certain will continue to be held as a tradition after the corona crisis. Today we'll be looking at the topic of Brexit. What will happen next? We're currently in a transition period and we're negotiating the future relationship, but the question is, will there be an agreement on the future relationship? Originally, this question was supposed to be answered by June this year. Does the UK want an agreement? Will it be acceptable for the EU? Where do we go from here? If there is no agreement, an extension is possible, but what are the prospects here? Is there a possibility to find an agreement that should be in our mutual interest? In any case, it is in Hessen's interest. Hessen is a financial marketplace with strong experts, and we entertain strong and manifold relationships with the UK. Many companies are asking how things will develop, what the future will bring. I'm looking forward to today's information and discussion. Will there be an agreement, or will there be a hard Brexit, a hard cut? You're welcome to participate in the discussion and asking questions, following along, and shape your own opinion. You can follow along in English if you want as well, and I'm already looking forward to see you again next time. Today we will once again be moderated by our expert moderator Hendrick Kafsack. Please enjoy today's event.
Paulina, it's already normal. How are you working in this during this corona crisis? You were part of the post-Brexit team. It's quite an intense moment right now in discussions. How should we imagine all this? Is everybody there in the office? Are people working from the home office? How is the approach? Thank you very much also for having me. Everybody is on board. We are more or less 65 people who are in the discussions on the agreement, but we are also working with the general directions like commerce, fisheries, and many more. We have more or less 20 GDs that are occupying themselves with these questions, and we right now have the third round. We finished the third round in video conferencing because we can't travel to London. The colleagues from London can't come to Brussels, and therefore in April we had the second round, then a conference a couple of weeks ago, and next week we will have another video conference round. More or less, we will have every week a meeting, like 40 meetings in parallel as far as services, goods, flights, or internal security, energy, transport are concerned. All the topics that we are normally talking about. And I have two things. Half of you is sitting in London and the other half in Brussels, or is there somebody also working from home? Probably not from the sleeping room, but many colleagues are working in home, smart working. Not everybody of the team is in the same room, and technology is helping, even if this is not getting easier. And this kind of discussions are working, are functioning, because it has never been easy in between Europe and the British part. I might imagine that the video conference is not helping a lot. Not in That's true. The technical part is working. Indeed, you can exchange with your colleagues, but it's not the same like being in the same room, where you can also have a bio trilateral normally. These are all things that you need the phone for, and obviously the whole setup is a bit different from the physical meeting. Last week we had a letter from David Frost, where he was quite rude about the strategy applied by the European Union. And this obviously the ball went back into the UK field, and it's like being at a point where we can't go ahead. As far as the letters are concerned, I think the letter of Mr. Barnier was very clear, and he also said that we shouldn't discuss via letters, but at the table. We had the third round, as I already said, and after this round in the press conference, he said that he was disappointed that we didn't had many we had made many efforts, but no results. This is something that he already said before. Yes, the discussions are difficult. We have a mandate from 27 member states, obviously also with the help of the European Parliament. The Commission is discussing in the name of the Parliament and the member states. It's not that we have our own mandate. Ireland has a very clear mandate, a position paper that we published in March, or already at the end of February, and there we have the different positions. And it's true, right now, we didn't proceed like we wanted. There are several topics as far as goods, energy, and services, or also flights are concerned. But there are other topics where we have really great differences, like fisheries, the so-called level playing field with the fair conditions, in the social field, environment, and different other topics where we said we have to agree on a high standard, because the British part has one part, and obviously they have been integrated for decades, and we would like to maintain the level playing field. But our British friends are not exactly of the same opinion. The third topic we are discussing about is governance. How is the architecture of the agreement? We would like a complete agreement to many topics like safety, for example, and it would be nice to have uh, one of these agreements, and our British friends have a different approach because they would like to have agreements on different topics like for flights, energy, and so on. There are many things we have to discuss still. Where are the positive developments? Because it's very rare that we have something positive in this Brexit discussions. In some of the technical questions, there is some movement, there are steps ahead, and we do not have the impression that everybody is looking at the other one. The discussions are constructive. It's a very competent team from the British side. I can only say positive things, and these are meetings and discussions that are positive. And indeed, there are some technical parts where we can proceed, and obviously we would like also have flights to the UK after the 1st of January. These are all topics where we are very near, but the challenge is that we need one package, not only that you are picking some of the topics, it has to be everything, and then we have the level playing field, the governance, the architecture, for the agreement. And without these points, we couldn't go ahead. Is it a political game in between the two parts, also with Mr. Barnier? Are we in a moment where everybody is asking or waiting that the other one is acting or reacting, and we have less and less time to decide something, and probably they want to proceed with their requests? It was clear that this wouldn't be easy. This is nothing new. Obviously, also the tone is a little bit more rude. And what is important for us is that we have a momentum in this discussion, and we don't have a lot of time left, so we should really go ahead.
No, we're supposed to sum up how the negotiations went in July, and many say that things will not move forward in a way that could be called dynamic. As to use the words you used, that's another question. Is there an extension of this transition period that is currently supposed to run until 31st of December? And that Boris Johnson said of that it will, that there is no way to have an extension for this, that the corona crisis doesn't change this. Does anyone on your side believe that this can actually bring up some dynamic, some movement again, or do you have to have final agreement by the end of the year? What's the perspective here? So the withdrawal agreement is very clear here. There is the possibility of an extension for the transition period, but that's a decision that has to be taken by both sides, the United Kingdom and the European Union. So we would have to both want an extension, and this decision would have to be taken before the 1st of July. And with the extension, there comes the obligation for the United Kingdom to contribute financially to the European Union. This is not about being part of the next multi-annual financial framework. They're definitely out of that. and they are no longer part of the budget of the European Union after the end of this year. But the withdrawal agreement foresees that if there's an extension of the transition period, there has to be a financial contribution. And as you correctly said, Hendrik, the British government, the UK government has frequently and clearly stated that they're not interested in such an extension of the transition period. And even if the European Union was to ask for an extension, the UK government would say no. So I think we can expect that there will be no extension of the transition period, which will mean the end of the transition period by the end of the year. And the United Kingdom will thus no longer be part of European legislation and the single market. And we are trying to get as many results as possible in negotiating until the end of the year. And we will, of course, continue negotiating next year. Yes, but in the meantime, we'll have a situation where we will still have some kind of hard Brexit, especially in trade, where we will then only be governed by the rules of the World Trade Organization and would have to have that kind of tolls and dues as well, which will lead to a certain level of friction as well. Absolutely correct, Hendrik. If there is no extension, the transition period will end on December 31st, which will mean an economic Brexit on 1st of January. And there will be tariffs in trade between the United Kingdom and the European Union, which would indeed lead to a certain level of friction. But we also have to say that even if there was a trade agreement, we will still insist on that will have to insist that even if we have a great and ambitious agreement, the relationship will be different from what is today. They will no longer be part of the single market. So companies have to get ready for the exchange of goods and services that trade with the United Kingdom of Great Britain will be very different with the beginning of next year. We've mentioned this. In the end, you only have up until October to negotiate because you still have to ratify an agreement afterwards. Yes, absolutely. There has to be a ratification phase. And that you have, of course, to plan for. There are procedures to be respected. So any agreements you would have to find, you cannot negotiate up to 31st of December. No, an agreement has to go in earlier, has to be done earlier. The High Representative, Mr. Klaus, has been here and said that this will get started after July, and in September there will be some fields where you can get results. And it sounded a little bit like that people are stepping away from the strategy of putting everything into one single agreement. So our mandate that we have received from the 27 member states is very clear. This is a comprehensive mandate. That is what we have been mandated to do, and that's the basis we're negotiating on. And that means fishery policy, level playing field, governance structures. Yes, also a free trade agreement, maintaining services agreements, police exchanges, Europol, Eurojust, data exchanges that we have for police cooperation, amongst others, in order to be able to continue to organize this. All of this is part of things that need to be organized and coordinated, not only economical questions, but also questions of security are part of our mandate. Defense policy, cooperation, and that is a topic where the British friends said that they don't want an agreement for that, that this is something that can be done outside of that. But our mandate does include this. Where are potential conflicts? If you look at fishery policy, why is this one of the sources of conflict here? Why is it so important to have access to British waterways, which sees for that this could be an obstacle to the whole agreement? Well, the fishery policy question is very important. is very important for some because this concerns many small and medium-sized enterprises and companies that are really just people living and working on the shore at the seaside. And today, the UK is part of the CFP, the Common Fisheries Policy. And quotas, what can be caught when, by whom, has been established for a very long time. Now, the United Kingdom says we are an independent state, so we can decide who can fish in our waters, which is a comprehensible and factually correct position. So they are no longer part of the CFP, which means they are an independent state that can decide themselves what is allowed to happen in their waters. On the other hand, there is a mutual interest to establish clarity, because people working in fishing need to know what they can fish and where. And there are also Britons who fish in our waters. The markets for fish products are frequently treated in the UK and then exported to Europe. So there are many, many aspects of this topic that we want and need to discuss. I don't think it should surprise anyone that we start from quite different positions in this negotiation, but in our last round of negotiations, and I think Mr. Barnier said this in a press conference, that we've had a constructive discussion, fruitful discussion, and we have to look forward to see how this will develop. So Mr. Barnier said that the one positive aspect is that there is some movement on this specific topic that we can maybe find an agreement somewhere in between, having no access to British waters and full access to British waters. Well, our mandate is very clear here. That is starting from today's situation, the current state of affairs, that we would like to keep that. But of course, it is a very positive and constructive thing that we are in a constructive exchange with the UK. But this is not something that we discuss independently from other agreements. A good fishery policy agreement is also linked to governance structures and other topics that are part of it. If we look at fair competition, that's something that really upsets Boris Johnson occasionally, and he said, justifiably, I don't want to do wage dumping or social dumping or environmental dumping, but I don't see why the EU should dictate how I have to set up my climate or environmental protection or laws. Isn't it very understandable that the British see this as exaggerated demands? I think, yeah, of course, that there's a question of sovereignty, and nobody is doubting that they can make their own laws in the way they see fit. Isn't it a bit of a contradiction to say you can be sovereign as long as you do what we say? No, but because we didn't say that they have to take over our labor laws or environmental protection laws. There has been a political statement that the EU and UK agreed on in October 2019. Boris Johnson and his government agreed to this. It's a political document that set up the parameters for the future relationship. The political declaration, and there's a very clear paragraph in this about this topic. And what is being treated in that paragraph is that both sides agree to maintain a high level of standards, and especially because they said that they don't want to do dumping and want to have high standards in climate protection, environmental protection. It shouldn't be that hard to find an agreement, that you agree to maintain such a level of standards, because that is all this is about. We have a high levels of standards in environmental protection. You do too. We want to maintain these high standards. That's really what this is about.
Just to ask once again, you can even turn it around. If you don't want to do this, why do you want to fix it in the agreement? It's an agreement that will be there for many years. Somebody might say we are not deregulating, but we want an agreement that is, let's say, valuable in the next decades, and the fair level playing field. This is something that is really important for the well functioning of the single market. Now, fisheries seems to be easy, 100% access to the water, the other one says no, and then you find an agreement somewhere in the middle. I guess it's like in many questions, and it's important to discuss about substance. What do you want to do? What do we want to do? In order to discuss what is the most important point for climate protection of the European Union, which is important also for the UK. There you should be able to find a solution. And, I think the level playing field might find a good solution if the political will is there, right? But that's always the same when you are discussing. I guess this is something very special also in the Brexit discussion. And I would go to a couple of questions as far as the transition period is concerned. Mr. Borchardt from Politico, who is asking, what do you think about a conditional extension preparation and engagement period for the transition, for a longer transition period in order for both sides to ratify the whole agreement? Yes, it's clear. We have seen this idea as there are different ideas how to have a longer implementation phase or other varieties. The agreement is very clear. We have a deadline at the end of June, and this is then also the moment where we have to find an agreement about going longer, and the legal field is clear. But didn't the Brexit show that things are always very clear? And then if you want to, in September, you see that you need more time, then both sides might agree on that. You are obviously thinking when the Brexit came, well, and they said, no, it's not possible, that's the law, but then obviously they found a solution, and then once again they found another solution in another moment. We have Article 50, which is clear, and this can be prolonged from the state who is leaving the European Union and the European Union, and therefore we had different delays. Article 50 is not valid anymore. The Brexit is real, and therefore Article 50 is not valid anymore, and we have the agreement or the discussions on the agreement. Where a will, there's a way. but I'm not expecting further reactions. Another question about two programs, Mrs. Bachner. She is asking about Erasmus Plus, if this can be part of the agreement in order to have students give students the possibility to study in the UK, or the Horizon program, and the Brits will be taking part, and at which point you are in the discussions. We have a discussion about the participation of the UK in the Union programs. There we also have third parties, third countries, therefore there are already third countries like Switzerland or Israel that are taking part in these programs, and in some things where the UK stated an interest, like for Erasmus. All this is part of the whole agreement, and obviously we will also have third countries, not only like Erasmus. And what would be the difference with Erasmus if we had a third state? I'm honest, I do not know the details. In any case, there is the possibility of an exchange. We also have Erasmus Mundo nowadays with the third states, but as far as the financing and the rules are concerned, this is something that has to be decided by the states. And in Horizon, it depends on how much the Brits would like to invest. They got more money than what they paid in, and this is one of the questions we have in our discussions here. But this is something that we have to discuss, how to differentiate it. And as we are also here with the questions, Mr. Heidkamp of the AFD, who is referring to Corona and is sharing an idea, even if it will be difficult and expensive for the Brits. Lucky them that they managed to get out. This is like a political statement. Would you like to react on this, or will we leave it like this? I have to say that the fact that we have the agreement since February, that we decided upon many questions of the EU citizens in the UK and vice versa, that we have a financial settling in between UK and the European Union. This is all very, very important. If this wouldn't be in place, the fact that we have the agreement is perfect for the European Union and for the others. And what consequences we do have or will have in the next few years, we will see. We will see. And I don't want to add anything more to that. But another aspect that is related to what you did before, financial services. And I think I don't have to explain that London is very important as far as the financial market is concerned, and you always have to have the question, what will we do in this context? Because the Brits would like to have a clear signal and would also have a common ruling, but the European Union says that the financial market is our decision. You are not involved. We just tell you if you might or might not participate. And we've seen with Switzerland that this is obviously also a very political decision, because you can make pressure. How is the discussion going on? Is the access something that is abused. No, not at all. And our mandate, the declaration was clear, and financial services, when we are talking about the access to the market, we do have the equivalent instrument. We don't have it for every part in the financial services, but there are opportunities. The European Commission is making an evaluation and proposes a law for a third state, and in order to have access to the European market, we said from the beginning this is a decision that we will decide upon for the European Union, and the US and Japan had these decisions, and from the British side, this is unilateral. Great Britain will detach several parts, and we started with the discussions, and we are agreed also to have a look on these different financial sectors, and if this is okay, we will see how this will go on and what we have to say, and what is important also for Hesse as a financial place. It's not from January next year, it will be completely different. So we have a kind of passport for all these services, and this will not exist anymore. Even if we would agree on this 40, this will not be the same version that we have today. Just to be very concrete, in the banking sector, we do not have an equivalent that gives you the access. That means that the British banks will need to have an office in the European Union, or can work on the basis of, for example, German rules. And also in this field, we have to know that it will be a completely new landscape.
And at what point will we have clarity on these decisions? In our political declaration from October last year, we said that we will do our best endeavors, as we say, to do this evaluation of equivalency. And the goal was to do this until 1st of July, so we're busy doing this in DG FISMA, that is responsible for this, but is of course the evaluation and estimate is the first phase, and the second phase is taking actual decisions. And that is something we will have to wait until when and how this will be done. So there is no fixed date yet for when these decisions will be taken. No, there is no set date. But after the 1st of January next year, they will not be part of the European single market, so there will no longer be any other solution. Yeah, okay, so margins of movement are maybe somewhat limited, as you described. So maybe let's leave that question open for now. But if you try to negotiate such a huge agreement, why not also take up financial services and put it into that instead of having that separately? Well, we have many agreements with third countries, so with market access. Especially in financial services, are never part of the agreements, not in the agreement that we have with Canada or the agreement that we have with Japan. We have a dialogue about financial services and financial policy, but there never is market access part in this agreement, and will be the same for the United Kingdom. Many mentioned that this is a one-time agreement, which means that you could not. Well, that's not. It wasn't wanted to have that as part of our mandate at the time. So you've mentioned Canada and Japan, and the UK has always quoted CETA, the Canada Agreement, as a blueprint for these negotiations. And if we look at the rounds of negotiations that have happened, is this really what the UK wants, that they want a CETA plus, whatever plus is supposed to mean? That you really have to look at the individual topics amongst this. Mr. Barnier has mentioned this in the last press conference. If you look into detail what our British friends are proposing, because they have submitted their proposals for an agreement, and some areas it's CETA, and in many areas it's not quite like CETA. For instance, they would like an automatic recognition of professional qualification as we know it in the single market, but as we do not have with Canada, especially in the area of services, that, for example, British media experts should have a lot of access to the European markets. As in electricity, they would like to be part of the market as well. And these are 2-3 areas that are absolutely not part of our agreement with Canada. And this idea that they want an agreement compared to CETA, if you look into detail, that's simply not true. So the CETA plus, the plus is a very big plus, to phrase it that way. Yes, absolutely. And this, of course, leads to the EU side that you could talk about CETA, but if the plus is so huge, you have to deliver more exchange. Well, the way we see it, it's always interesting to look at existing agreements that have been negotiated for decades with some of our partners, with some third countries. But these can be interesting models, but every agreement is always specifically negotiated, is unique for the country we are negotiating with. The agreement we have with Canada is different from the one that we have with Japan, it's different from the one we have with South Korea, and that's all good and proper. That's the way it's supposed to be. It always depends on what kind of country is it, what kind of economic relations and connections do we have to these states. So this really is something that has to be looked at individually. And it's a simple fact that with the United Kingdom, we have this political declaration from last year where we explicitly agreed what we wanted to achieve, which is something that none of the other trade agreements ever had. So this is a very different starting position from any trade agreement. Do you have the impression that the UK feels bound to this declaration because everything that's coming from London seems to be moving very far away from the political declaration? Does it even make sense to still bank on that, to rely on that? Well, it's an official document between the British government and the European Union, and it's the current government, it's Boris Johnson's government that signs it. So yes, we absolutely think it makes sense to rely on this declaration. Will there be customs or tariffs between the EU and the United Kingdom, even if there's an agreement? Because there is the zero tariffs, zero quotas, full market access. We see the step plus whatever, but there is. Let's say the UK wants to have this gradually. Do you think it will lead to discussions to in what sectors tariffs are necessary and or acceptable? Well, our proposal is no tariffs, no dues, and that is set up. That is the same in the legal proposal from the UK, but it's always part of the discussion, and it's been part of the British debate. Maybe we do not need zero tariffs. Maybe some tariffs should be maintained. I think there's two things you can say when you're addressing these concerns, that even an agreement that even if there was not a zero tariff agreement, we would still insist on a level playing field. That is one of our core demands. And we also think that a zero tariff, zero quota agreement is the best thing for both sides. And if we talk about customs and tariffs, if we have to negotiate, that is going to take much longer to negotiate. So this will not even be possible without an extension. That would be extremely difficult, I believe. One last question about the European Union and its relatively closed position. This is about solidarity in the European Union. It has been a great success that we've all spoken, the EU members have spoken with one voice. If you look at the future relationship, that UK seems to be betting on the classic cliff edge. That as soon as we get close to the end, that maybe one or the other member state might stray from the shared position of the EU member states. For example, the German automotive industry could say that they need the British market. Well, as you said, the member states have spoken with one voice. I think this is our strength, that we can speak with one voice, that we speak jointly, have a strong position, and that is a clear signal that we're sending. Of course, one member state is more interested in one topic than another. Some member states care more about fishery policy than others, obviously. But core topics like the level playing field, fair competition, that's about the single market as a whole, and that's important for all the member states, even those that have less of a direct exchange or direct trade with the United Kingdom, because if there is warped or unfair competition within the single market, that will affect the whole of the single market, all of the European Union. So I'm quite confident that we will maintain our strong position speaking with Waterways. Thank you very much for this interview, Paulina. I think we have really gotten a good impression of where we are and where we want to go. And we're looking forward to seeing how this develops in the coming months. And I would like to draw attention to the fact that the video of this interview will still be available even after the interview, for example, on the website of the Chancellery of Hessen, staatskanzlei.hessen.de, where you will have to click through to the website of the permanent position of Hessen in Brussels, and you can just watch it again to pay more attention to detail if you want, but you can also just turn off your computer, go outside, enjoy the sunshine for a little bit, and try to enjoy the more positive aspects of the current crisis, if we are allowed to call it. So thank you very much for